This is Melinda Marsh. We're starting the advocacy half hour, and after that, we'll move on to a fundraising half hour. And to kick off the advocacy side, we are very lucky today to have Gracie Maurer coming to share with us and represent a rare disease advocacy organization called Every Life Foundation. And this year specifically, we need to be better advocates. We need to advocate for LHON. We need to advocate for mitochondrial disease. We need to advocate that we aren't forgotten uh, as a rare disease. And Gracie is going to share a little bit more about her background and how we can all do that as a community better and do it with other communities to have our voice be stronger. So I'm introducing Gracie, and thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, thank you.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Gracie. Thank you, Melinda, for that very nice introduction. I am here on behalf of the Every Life Foundation for Rare Diseases. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization located in Washington, D.C., but we do advocacy work all across the United States. And just a little bit about me. I am a law scholar at St. Louis University. I'm currently studying psychology on the pre-law track. I'm hoping to go into like health law and policy. I'm a hashtag Rarest Scholarship recipient. So the Every Life Foundation for Rare Diseases has a scholarship that they offer to rare disease patients. It's called the hashtag Rarest Scholarship. I'll chat a little bit more about that. And then I am also a young adult rare representative for the Every Life Foundation. That is just ages 16 to 30. We are educated and then we go out and advocate within our communities. And obviously, that's the reason I'm here on behalf of them today. And then, in addition to that, I am a rare disease patient myself. I have ulcerative colitis, and then that has obviously impacted my life in ways to want me to advocate for not only my rare disease community, but all rare disease communities as a whole. So, like I said, the Every Life Foundation for Rare Diseases is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They're dedicated to empowering the rare disease patient community to advocate for impactful, science driven legislation and policy. Um, Ultimately, this advances equitable development and access to life saving diagnoses, treatments, and cures. Ultimately, our goal one is to create community. So, community within the rare disease community to show everyone that we're not alone. Um, like Kristen said, we are stronger together. That's one of Every Life Foundation's favorite mottos to use. When we were on Capitol Hill in February for Rare Disease Week, when we took our picture all together on three, we said stronger together. And that really is the truth. Rare is not so rare. Rare diseases are defined as affecting fewer than 200,000 Americans, with over 10,000 rare diseases, and they're still growing, and it's affecting over 30 million Americans. It's something that's important for us to stay educated on, so that we can go out and educate others. So that leads me into what is advocacy. Advocacy is an activity by a person or a group of people that influences or changes decisions made by the people who make our laws. So that is one of the biggest goals of the Every Life Foundation, is advocacy. So each year we focus on these are the things that are going through legislation. We educate our people, our advocates, on these policies going through legislation. And then our advocates actually go out and they talk to legislators and they say, this is how this affects me personally. We're humanizing the fact that this is this policy, this is what this would do to me, and my life and my community. And we tell them how they can help us. So advocacy it's at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. I also don't want to ignore the fact that advocacy is in your everyday life. That is educating people who you encounter on what your disease is, and how they can help you. And ultimately, advocacy, educating others is going to make it more of a known thing. So then it's talked about, and then it's how can we help? So where you live definitely matters as far as advocacy. So just an example of that, I know that affects the LHON community. The ability to receive newborn screening and diagnostics and to access care and medications. So some states, it may be easier than others. Some states might have that newborn screening, and it might have more more things that they're screening for than other states. And then obviously the access to care and medications depends where you live. Um, but advocacy at all levels is important. So that is at your local level and your local districts. That's at your state level, talking to your Congress men and women and your senators, and then of course at the federal level. And I'll talk about how each of those applies to what Every Life is doing. You can move to the next slide, please. Perfect. So why is the patient voice important? Just a quote that we have from Kate Niehaus. She says, "The patient voice adds a different perspective to everything that goes on in healthcare and can point out real gaps in the system." So I believe this is so true. A legislator can see a policy come across their desk and they can ask themselves, okay, what is this policy? What does it say? But if we can offer them a perspective of this is how this policy affects me individually, not just individually, but my community and the rare disease community as a whole, then when that policy comes across their desk, they see it and they know, oh, somebody told me how this affects them and they told me how I can help. And so they're educated on what that policy is, how it affects the Americans, and how they can help us. So these are a few of our upcoming events and opportunities. There are some QR codes. So on your far left, that first QR code is going to be for Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. That was this past February. I was in attendance along with tons of rare disease patients, advocates, caregivers. It was an awesome week on Capitol Hill. And then in the middle there, that QR code is going to be for rare disease legislative advocates, which is all people over the age of 30 can be a rare disease legislative advocate. And then I'll also talk about if you're under the age of 30, what that will look like. And then Rare Across America is on your far right of the screen, and that will be in August. So that's coming up, and registration for that will close July 11th. But what that will be is that will be meetings within your districts, and then in-person meetings in your districts or virtually if you prefer that, and then virtual meetings with your senators. So we will have webinars to educate you on the policy issues that are actively going through legislation that you will want to address with those people. But it's a great opportunity. It's a great intro into advocacy. You're not doing it alone, so it would be with a group of people. And it's an awesome opportunity to kind of get your foot in the door of what advocacy looks like. Even if you just go and you don't speak and you just watch, it's a great opportunity. It's something that I'll be doing within my districts here in Missouri, but something that you all have the ability to do within yours. So just a little bit more about Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. This is where advocates meet with their members of Congress on Capitol Hill. So you're actually going between the House building and the Senate building. It's a long walk. I figured that out in February. So this next Rare Disease Week is going to be held February 24th through 26th of 2026. Registration will open in early January. At this past Rare Disease Week, there was over 800 rare disease advocates. There was 184 patient organizations. There was 363 meetings with members of Congress, and then more than 150 co-sponsors added to bills highlighted in events asked. And then 9 new members were added to the Rare Disease Congressional Caucus. So what was really cool about that, I mean, I got to see it firsthand, what these conversations and what this advocacy can really do. I met with members from the state of Missouri, and we were asking them to sign on and co-sponsor a bill for the Kids Access to Care Act. So being Medicaid patients being able to cross state lines to get the care that they need. And that same day, both Missouri senators co-sponsored that bill after speaking to them about that. So that is what advocacy can do. Along with 148 other co-sponsors. So it is a really cool thing. And it works. They need to be educated on these things just as much as we do. And so that is what advocacy can do this is an example of the federal level. And that is Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. I definitely recommend you sign up and attend if you can. We do offer travel stipends, so you can apply for those on the website as well. We are very gracious with those travel stipends for patients and caregivers. We want everybody who wants to attend this event to have the ability to. So I definitely recommend you be there. And if you are, I'll see you there. Rare disease legislative advocates is a part of your state. So you can join your state in that group of people. One of our mottos is every voice in every state matters. These are just a few examples. We've got some Congress meetings, or not Congress meetings, sorry, state meetings, people meeting with legislators from their state and going in and advocating for the rare disease community. And then Rare Across America that I talked a little bit about, that's going to be in August. Virtual and in-person meetings in your district. That will be August 4th through 15th, depending on your district, obviously. And then registration is open and it will close July 11th. So I definitely recommend you register if you're interested. And then we also have some patient community engagement things. So Rare Artists is one of the things that we offer. So I've got some QR codes on the screen. On your far left is going to be the Rare Artist QR code. In the middle is going to be the QR code for young adult rare representatives, which is ages 16 to 30. And then on your far right will be the Rare is Scholarship Fund for more information about that. I'm going to go into a little detail about each of those now. So, Rare Artists is an opportunity to share your story and advocate through art. So many people have such a talent and creativity to put the way that they're feeling into an art form. And so, Rare Artists is a way that people do that. You can submit now until July 9th, so you still got some time if you'd like to submit some of your artwork for that. But on the screen are just some images of some artwork of people, and I don't know if you guys are going to give access to this PowerPoint to people, but I've described those images for you, so it should be able to read a description of those images. But just to describe a few of those, in the bottom right corner, we've got a rainbow. And that one was drawn by a young girl who said that she feels like when she's feeling well, it feels like the rainbow. And so that's the way she has herself there in the middle at the bottom, looking up at the rainbow. Next to that, we've got a picture of inside of somebody's brain for a neurological rare disease, and kind of what they think that looks like or how that makes them feel. So a bunch of different ways. We have poems of people who say how their rare disease makes them feel. And this rare artist is really cool because you're actually put into a nomination for like awards. And then there's awards ceremony that you will actually get to attend and be presented with an award. So awesome opportunity. I'm not very creative, so you won't see me participating in this, but I know so many people are. Perfect. And then YAR is advocates ages 16 to 30. This includes patient advocates, family members, and loved ones. So you don't have to be a patient to be a young adult rare representative. This is what I am. I have really enjoyed my time as a young adult rare representative. It really creates skill building opportunities for the next generation of rare disease advocates. You're never too young to advocate. We have advocates who are 5 years old at the Every Life Foundation, and they're going in and talking to members of Congress and saying, this is how it affects me. And so you're never too young to start and you're never too old to start. We aim to have at least one YAR from every state, and there's still so many states that need a YAR. So if you know someone, we've got that QR code there. That'll actually take you to the application. So the QR code on the bottom right corner of the screen will take you to the application for YAR. And then the hashtag Rare is Scholarship Fund. So it was established in 2020, so it's still pretty new. But I love to tell people about it because I know it's impacted my education in ways that I could never even imagine. So it was made to enrich the lives of adults living with rare diseases by providing support for their educational pursuits. So it is a one-time award of $5,000 each, granted up to 104 recipients for each year. So the amount of recipients changes each year, but for this next time, it will be 104, which is awesome. That's amazing. Applications for this year are closed, but you can sign up for emails about next year's application cycle. Um, since 2020, they have awarded 387 scholarships, and this year they will be awarding their $2 millionth to patients who are looking to pursue their education. Um, and then new this year, we are going to have a mentorship program. But my hope was to provide you with a little bit of information about advocacy and hopefully make you interested in the Every Life Foundation. And so you can sign up for our newsletter with this big QR code on the screen. This will give you action alerts and it'll invite you to our events and send you ways to sign up for those. You can also follow us on social media or just get more information on our website. But we're here to help you and to help educate you to advocate for yourself and your communities. And yeah, I'm very thankful to have been here and spoken to you guys today. And hopefully, I provided you with a little bit of hope that there are things going on and that there are advocates out there actively pursuing these bills and that our legislators do care. I promise you they do. I saw it firsthand and they want to help. A lot of the times they just don't know how. And so that is what that is why we need to advocate. We can show them how they can help so that we can actively create change within our communities.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Gracie.
Thanks, Gracie, for the information on Every Life. Continuing with advocacy, I would like to introduce to you Andrea Kiefer. Andrea was a Minnesota House of Representative from 2011 to 2015. Andrea, can you tell us how you're connected to the UMDF and the Mito community?
Thank you, Jennifer and Melinda, for inviting me to speak today. And what a great presentation, Gracie. And you covered a lot of stuff that I'm not going to try to duplicate, but it's so interesting. My universes collided. I was in office in government, an elected official, having groups like y'all coming and seeing me at the office. And in January of 2011, I was sworn in. On January 31st of 2011, I actually voted yes on making Minnesota a mitochondrial awareness state. Never thinking, honestly, never imagining that 6 months later on July 31st, my daughter had her first seizure and mitochondrial episode. And like many of you people in this room know, it took several months to find out what was happening. And she got a diagnosis in January the next year that it was MELAS. I've never left UMDF, even though our sweet daughter passed on in 2019. But these issues are so important to me, and I don't want her life to be for naught. So I continue to raise money and awareness. And what I can help with is this legislative side. I feel like I can actually help in some ways because I've been on the other side of that desk and I've been the person that people are talking to. So that's how I intersected. And Jennifer, I'm gonna
So
let you.
a Mito mom like myself, if I want to get an appointment with you, how do I go about doing that?
Yes, you have to be persistent. And some representatives are very easy to get a hold of and some are not. And there's always a gatekeeper, a legislative assistant. And a lot of times legislators, especially if they're a little more aloof, are going to be like, oh, you can just talk to my LA, they'll take all the notes. But it really, a face-to-face is the best way to contact any of your elected officials. They're going to be more open to face-to-face conversations when they're not in session or they're in campaign season because all of a sudden they want to hear you. But there's lots of ways. And so these days at the Hill, they have them in the state too. And the bigger your group, is, and if you can get into as many offices and talk face to face with a representative, a senator at the state level, it's easier than going to Washington, D.C., especially if you live in a capital city. So you can request these with their legislative assistant, get them on the calendar. Another thing you can do is during sessions, especially long sessions, sometimes you can show up and ask, I think it's the sergeant at arms or something, and they'll send a note to the representative who's sitting out there like you on the floor taking votes and stuff. There's a lot of, testimony and dragging on and explaining bills. So they love an excuse to get up and see a constituent outside in the hallway, and it gives them a break too. So they'll be like, Representative, so, the more of your constituents that you can get face-to-face interaction with, a good representative is going to want to talk to you face-to-face and get to know you. Was there
So-
anything else that I didn't touch on?
Nope. So now that I have my appointment with my,
But it shouldn't be a personal venting session, and you really need to be respectful of their time and energy, and they're pulled in a whole bunch of different directions. I believe we have a QR that's going to give you some information about what kind of a leave behind would you be able to give them? What are you specifically asking? What is your group? How do you get contacted if they have another question and want to email you with a few more questions? What are you asking, and how is this going to help the state in general? How is that going to save money for the state? How is that going to improve the lives of the people? Those kinds of things. The other thing I was going to mention on it's interesting in Minnesota that there's like a booth, and I think most state fairs, most county fairs will do this. They'll have like a legislative booth. I don't know if you guys have ever tried this, but go to your county fair and see if your local representative is there, or find out when they're going to be there. And you can just pop in, say hi, introduce yourself, let them know who you are. You always want to put a face to the story. But then also, like I said, just don't make it like they're here to save your life. They're not. They're just trying to understand and make it better, how to make your life better.
so on the screen right now, we do have some of the asks in the Mito community. The first one at the state level is important to all states, and that's that you would like to, your state to be a mitochondrial disease awareness, have a mitochondrial disease awareness week. And the other one that's great for our community is New Jersey has a medical nutrition bill. And I have been working with Andrea in the state of Minnesota trying to get a bill passed in Minnesota for that would help cover supplements for our patients. The UMDF's asks, and those that are at a federal level, that are congressional caucus on mitochondrial disease, that we have representatives sign on to that, and to help co-sponsor the Medical Nutrition Act at the federal level as well. And they would also like us right now, currently, we just got an email from the UMDF to send a letter to support the Department of Defense in mitochondrial disease research. On the LHON or visual side, there is a bill out there, HR 1175, the Blind America's Return to Work Act. That is another ask of ours. The Foundation for Fighting Blindness is asking to keep the National Eye Institute. So those are some of our asks. But Andrea has been helping me in Minnesota, and could you just explain a couple of my mistakes with our medical nutrition bill? Because I was so excited that we had a bill number and it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, well, this is get back to being persistent, and you really do have to have some And you have to keep on that legislator to make sure they're following through with what they need to do, because otherwise it's going to get in the stack of papers down here and forgotten about. So once a bill has a number, you get the language, and the more legwork that you can do, the better. You do the research, you put the verbiage together. I've been talking to the doctors here this week, trying to get our language tightened up to make sure that it includes things. I found out that there's a term nationally called medical nutrition therapy, MNT. And so now we have a definition. Now we can zero in on this. We want to include infusions, necessary infusions. We'd rather have, and this is how you would explain it to the politician. The infusion should be included, because if it's not, and the patient goes into crisis mode, it's going to be a much more expensive ER visit twice a year than it is to just go to an infusion center for $150 and get the medication that they need to sustain their life. So that's, where am I going with this? What else have I missed? There's so much, you guys. It's
My
TMI.
mistake was I didn't realize we didn't have a House of Representative person signing on the bill.
Yeah.
So it just sat.
And I feel like it wasn't your mistake, it's probably mine. Life gets busy, and I live in Texas and you live in Minnesota. But I have said I'm committed to get this right this time. So we're gonna try to get the bill language tightened up. We're gonna get it in the hopper. We're gonna make sure that we have a House author on it. We're gonna try to get bipartisan signers. It's very important to have bipartisans. I'd love to have a Republican carry it in Senate and a Democrat carry it in the House. We need to get them to work together to get this passed in an efficient and way that everybody can support it. And just because the bill is written and it's in the hopper on both chambers doesn't mean anything yet. It still has to have a reading. So that's where y'all come in, and Jennifer can contact Minnesota people, and you Minnesota people might have other groups that you know of that are not on the email list. And then that's when you can specifically email and call the chair of the first committee, get a reading in the first committee, because that bill has to travel. And I don't know if you remember Sesame Street, the bill on the hill, how you do it. It literally is, that bill has to go to this committee. It has to be on the agenda. And potentially, if that happens, we can get some of you guys to show up and actually speak to the representatives. And then it has to be referred to the next committee. And so my guess, this bill will go to Health and Human Services, and then it's going to go to Health Finance, and then it's going to go to the Finance Policy, and it always goes to the Ways and Means Committee. They're kind of the final, hammer yes or no on that. So you have to follow how the bill goes. So find out what the bill number is, and then follow it. And when it has a hearing, make sure you've got some testifiers ready to go, that you'll have a couple of minutes to give your story or tell why you get this bill is important.
Thanks, Andrea. On the screen to your far left, we have a QR code for the Foundation of Fighting Blindness to their advocacy page. In the middle, we have the UMDF's advocacy page. That one I would sign up on. You'll get emails from Andy Dirth, and he sends out great emails that gives you the actual letter to just forward on to your congresspeople. And Andrea left a leave behind example for asks that you can look in on the far right QR code. But thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to say on the leave behind too, if you want to look at examples, it's just kind of threw ideas out there, but it's great when you do talk to somebody and you're in that office, can I give you this? Make it simple. Don't make them read a novel. They're lazy. And just, be very specific, but I've got that on there, and get as many groups as you can who endorse this. Okay. Or these states already have this law, or, the Eye Institute did it. And it's so important to show that there's much more of support than just me in the room going, oh, you know what my problem is? So that's important.
The Every Life Foundation also has examples of those leave behinds on their website. That they
Good.
on Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill, they provided us with those leave behinds. And then they also say follow up with an email. If you get a meeting with one of your legislators, thank them through an
Yeah.
email and remind them of what you talked about. Say, you know, I really appreciated when you said this in the meeting.
Yeah.
Give them something to remember, but also thank them for their time. And then you can end the email with like, I'm asking that you do blank. And then follow up with them again. Don't just leave it at that. You can thank them in an email, but continue to follow up. Say, do you have any
Persistent.
update on this? Kind of be annoying.
I know we do have a hand up and I also know that we're over time. So Tim, if you wouldn't mind just the one, but we're not taking any other questions right now because we have to move to fundraising.
Ken Bogner is the president of the Montana Senate. And Ken Bogner was promoting right to try legislation. And his right to try legislation says that if something's past phase 1, then a patient has the right to try it. So I corresponded with him. And then he reached out to me and said it's stuck on the governor's desk. Now, there was kind of a longevity push behind this, so it came slightly tainted. But I'm married to a woman with MELAS and I have 3 children with MELAS, so I have a bit of a different perspective. And so at his request, I wrote a letter to the governor. It was stuck on his desk because he had one of his advisors saying like, these are just a bunch of longevity whack jobs, don't sign this. And they're all Republicans, by the way, so this was an internal party discussion. So I sent him that letter and I don't know if it was all me, but a few days later he signed it. And now I'm corresponding with the governor and they're kind of bringing in the tactical, like, how do we actually pull this off? And I think to myself, as a MELAS patient, there's the Tacento booth right out the front, and they're in phase 2B. So now it's legal to provide that to people in the state of Montana. I find this very odd because I'm not even American.
Thank you so much for sharing how your personal advocacy
Yeah.
can move things along. I'd really love to thank Gracie and Andrea for sharing on advocacy. We've learned so much today. I know I have learned so much, and it's something I want to become more involved in and more active on doing. And I'd love to thank both of you for arriving today. And we're going to move to our
Yeah.
other half an hour so that we allow for Evan to start his session as close to on time as possible. So Uli, I'm going to have you get to come up, please, and Jen, you'll stay, and I'll move up to the just moving to the fundraising side of this story and equation. In addition to being good advocates, so that we make sure our voice is heard, we make sure that the priorities we have where LHON are concerned are prioritized, are valued. We also need to talk about fundraising. And some of you have met Uli in the past, and that fundraising goes for both aspects of the entire mission statement that you heard from LH1 Collective. Half of that is the community, such as supporting things like this conference so that it's accessible and able for everyone to attend, at least the broadest population as possible. It's also for the science that we've worked so hard with the Milken Institute to define those very identifiable goals going forward for LH1 so that we do see progress towards markers that we want to see as success metrics. And today, Uli will be, Uli Heine will be coming up and she'll be talking about the different types of fundraising possible. Small personal fundraisers to grant writing, to institutional fundraising, to corporate fundraising, the do's and don'ts of fundraising and what kind of fundraising efforts actually Uli will be helping us as LH1 Collective to promote and move forward so that we can be as impactful as possible for the entire LHON community, for all of us working together. So thank you, Uli, for coming, and you're welcome to stand or sit, whichever you prefer.
If it's okay, I'll stay seated. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you, Melinda. So my name is Uli Imhoff-Heine. I'm originally German, but I'm also American. And I've known the Marsh family, Chris and Melinda and the boys for over 10 years now from San Diego. Professionally, I've been in fundraising for over 30 years, and I'm happy to contribute whatever I can do to help fundraise for LHON and also serve as a person, as a volunteer for all things fundraising related to LHON. This is my second conference, and it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces from last year. I get to know you a little bit better and meet new ones as well. Before I start, I did want to ask how many of you either have fundraised professionally or informally through bake sales with your children or fundraising for your school? Anybody? Yes. Well, it looks like I'm in good company and do want to ask for your patience if a lot of what I'm going to say is familiar to you. There are really two parts of my presentation. It's very short. A bit of fundraising 101 and what you can personally do with LHON Collective to help us raise vital funds for our mission. Also, I'll be here the rest of the day and happy to talk about this topic with you. I can move these, right?
Yes.
So I want to start by saying just a couple of things about what is different about rare disease fundraising. Of course, when you see organizations like the American Cancer Society fundraise, it's much easier because there's a lot of money going to a disease that affects millions of people in the US and almost every family. Raising money for medical treatment and research related to a rare disease presents its own challenges, but also wonderful rewards. Because of the smaller patient population, there's less public awareness and fewer readily available funding sources. That's why raising awareness is so important and why fundraising and awareness are so closely linked. Fundraising often begins with storytelling, and this is where you all come in. Sharing your story can be an incredibly powerful tool. And in rare disease fundraising, collaboration between families fighting out at LHON, researchers, healthcare professionals, the corporate world, and advocacy groups is critical to finding cures, and that is what LHON Collective is trying to achieve. So I think it's been said a few times, but nevertheless, cannot be restated enough. LHON is really a global initiative with two goals. One is to improve the lives of people living with LHON, and the second one is to accelerate progress toward a cure for LHON. This is why we try to raise all the money we do. And regarding fundraising 101, on this slide, what is represented are potential funders that as a nonprofit, 501c3, we can attract, and also different modalities on the right side. So as far as different funders, I'm sure you've all heard about the big foundations, the Gates Foundation, Ford, Rockefeller. Those are definitely target the ones that are interested in specifically medical research and diseases, specifically rare diseases that we can approach. Then there are community foundations. Almost every city has these community foundations wherever you live. For example, in San Diego, we have the San Diego Community Foundation. Now they have some small funding available, but what they really have is donor advised funds, which is just another name for a charitable bank account that family who have the means establish sometimes at different organizations, but often at community foundations. So anybody could approach a community foundation wherever you live, especially in the big cities, and start raising awareness. Again, back to awareness and advocacy. Engagement begets investment. That's really how fundraising works. So a lot of you who are actually interested in getting involved could be talking to your community foundations. Private donors, anybody, obviously small and large, could be approached to make a donation to LHON Collective. We also sometimes in the industry get money from impact investors. We're not quite there yet. That would be more for pharmaceutical companies that could become B Corps related to LHON. Nevertheless, that's one other audience for 501c3s. We'll talk a little bit more about corporations and corporate foundations because there are many, many different ways corporations contribute philanthropically. And many of you have access, either you've worked at a corporation, you currently work, or maybe one of your family members has access to corporations. And then, of course, there are large family foundations that in the nonprofit space we work with as well. What we're doing right now as LHON Collective is we did start our online fundraising, and many of you bought the LHON Cup, and we raised very good money for with the cup to support this conference, for example. So the online, fundraising is active. I'll show you in a minute how this goes. We also are obviously already attracting donors on the mid-level and larger donation level. We're working on grants and proposals, and there are different ways for you to get involved in that. John is our poster child for grant writing. Thank you, John. But if there are other in the room who would like to get involved, we have opportunities. And we'll talk a little bit about events, because what you see on the right side as far as modalities, some others are, for example, sponsorships, memberships, planned gifts. We have one very generous person. I see Martina in the back, who's been so generous already in that way. So there are many different ways that a 501c3 can fundraise. And that's really where I come in, and I'm trying to make sure that we are open to fundraise in any which way somebody wants to get engaged. Traditionally, this is again, back to fundraising 101. The big donations or the big grants come either from the US government, used to be NIH. Now, you all heard about the recent changes that are happening at the top. So we're not sure that there's a lot of money there still for rare diseases, but of course, we're not going to give up. Large foundations for this kind of space, really the Wellcome Trust in the UK is one that gives the biggest grants for research in the medical field, or the Gates Foundation. Then you have in the middle of the pyramid, major donors, foundations, and corporations that might give between, 10,000 to even upwards of $1 million. And then on the bottom of the screen, you have the largest part of the pyramid, and that's where the online donations come in that we're already receiving, where we also see some corporate matching gifts come in, and where event fundraising comes in as well. So this is just a picture of a pyramid, basically, showing you how traditional fundraising works and where the money comes from. Just the last statistic, this is given out by Giving USA every year, is that in the US, more than $550 billion was given philanthropically by individuals, foundations, and corporations. The largest chunk of that, 67%, and actually if you add the givings by bequest, it's over 70% comes from individuals. Corporations only make up 7%. However, for us, 7% is still a lot of money. And there's a lot we can do with the corporations that might be interested in funding LHON Collective. And where did all this money go? Well, if you try, you probably can't see this, but anyway, there are the different areas of where folks invest. Religion is the largest area, and when you get to health, it's about 9%. This is where LHON Collective would fall. That's still more than my professional fundraising, which is only 5% in international affairs. 5% of, or 8% in this case, of $500 billion is still a lot of money. So there's a lot of room for us to grow and raise money. On this slide, what's depicted are different ways that corporations can get involved and support LHON Collective. And what you often hear is that a lot of corporations, specifically if they're larger, have a matching grant fund. And if you're already a donor, if you already bought a cup, a LHON cup from Melinda, you're already a donor, you get your donation receipt, you can take that to HR and see if your company actually matches that. A lot of companies match philanthropic donations. The other thing is, if you'd like to volunteer for LHON Collective, and we'll talk about how you can do that in a second, that time, a lot of companies will reward with a financial contribution to LHON Collective. We have, for example, one person who donates a lot of time to help us with Salesforce, setting up systems, technology, and is it Microsoft, Adobe?
It's Adobe.
Adobe, and Adobe actually makes a donation to LHON Collective for her time that she donated. So that is something that you can find companies do sometimes. I'm just going to focus on a couple more. Corporate grants, that is something where the grant writing, I'm looking at you, John, but we're hoping to get some more volunteers who are interested in getting involved in grant writing. Maybe you've done this already professionally. So corporate grants is where you can actually raise a little bit more money. There's, from 10,000 to maybe even upwards of $1 million, depending on the company, that they will actually give out in their corporate grants. So that is something, we have grant writers on staff, on a volunteer staff.
Yes, all volunteer.
Melinda, John, and myself so far, and we'd love to get more people involved. a lot of, I'm not going to talk about all these different icons here, but in-kind donations. This time we got the socks, but there are other ways companies donate. For example, technology. We could potentially get computers donated for LHON Collective. We'll have to work on that. Something that actually helps you a little bit more than the socks.
I think everyone here is excited about the socks.
We appreciate warm feet. Nothing wrong with that. And then sponsorships, it's a big one too, especially if we're talking about events, which we'll talk about in a second. A lot of companies like to sponsor events because they can get their name out there on the marquee, on the sponsorship T-shirt, or wherever it is. So there are very different opportunities for companies to get involved and support LHON Collective. And if you are working specifically with one of the Fortune 500 companies, one of the bigger companies, they all do this. And they either, you can either go to your HR or to their CSR program in their marketing department. CSR just stands for Corporate Social Responsibility. And they all set aside money for this kind of thing. So don't be shy. Regarding events, you have to be a little bit careful. We'll talk in this next popcorn session about some people that have done events successfully for LHON or also other charities, because events cost money, so you want to make sure that you start with a budget that actually nets money for the organization. But we have somebody who did a dinner in the dark, for example. I think we're going to have them talk about this in a minute. But even, anything from lemonade stands to bake sales, you have raised tens and hundreds of $1,000s in the United States for different charities. So it all counts. Everything counts. The small money, the big grants, the events, the sponsorships. This is just kind of to get you guys thinking about some things, right? I have bracelets on there. I mean, just, my own sons, when they were a little bit younger, did this bracelet campaign where they made very simple bracelets. Basically, you see my necklace here, that they did this as bracelets and raised $10,000. So, it's not just little money that can come together when you put a lot of passion and time behind these things. And sporting events is another very popular way to raise money. For example, for marathon runners, $1, $10, $100 a mile, whatever you want to dedicate. A lot of family members will support, specifically members of the LHON community, to actually have a successful event and also raise money. So we can help with that. We can help up the fundraising on the back end if somebody's interested in doing that. Again, how you can help. There are different ways to help with fundraising. One is help us research finding these grants. There are industry websites that I peruse, for example, but that takes time as well if somebody's really interested in that. And then go deeper once we find a funder that might be interested. Relationships. Relationships is the most important word in fundraising. And everybody, it's 6 degrees of separation. Everybody knows somebody who would like to help. So could be your company, your network, friends, families, even your bank. Banks and law firms are another other group of companies that have money set aside for charitable dollars. And yeah, maybe it's just $5,000, but if everybody does it, it adds up quickly. So we already talked about, we'd love to have some more writers if somebody loves writing for proposals. And then opening door with what I originally called the charitable bank accounts of generous donors, mostly donor advised funds or family foundations. People that have those, we'd love to talk to them and actually submit whatever they need, whether it's small proposal, large proposal, whatever would be interested to them. So, it is really about trying to find relationships to open these doors. We also, and I had one here. So we have these cards that I'd love for you to take, because next year the cards will have the new logo on it. But these cards basically have this QR code that everybody seems to be having up on the screen, but I just did not do that. They have a QR code where you can find out more about how fundraising for LHON Collective works and how people can contribute. So please take one of these cards that I have up front. That would be great. Okay, so now specifically donations for LHON. We were very happy to work with Fundraise Up on this, because they actually doesn't cost us anything. I mean, it cost us a transaction fee, but less than than with a lot of these other outfits. So Fundraise Up is our fundraising machine behind LHON.org when you go to get involved. So basically, there are different tabs. If you get on LHON.org, if you go towards the right, there's a tab that's called Get Involved. And there you see a beautiful picture of Rob's blue eyes that correlate to our blue logo. I don't know if that's how we found the blue, but I think Rob is in the audience. So thank you for letting us use your picture. And there you see basically an orange Donate Now button. If you click on it, you get to this page, and it gives you different amounts of money suggested that you could donate. There should suggested amounts on there, but you can also just type in whatever you like. And it defaults to give once, but there's also an opportunity to give monthly. And we do have a few monthly donors, and that's wonderful because, that adds up after 12 months for sure. There's also an opportunity to actually dedicate the donation in somebody's name if you choose to do so. So when you fill this out, and I just did that with a couple of you who bought another Yeti cup, you get right away a receipt from LHON Collective. You also get another letter from me and from Melinda. So you get different letters that you can use for your taxes later on. But it's a very easy way to donate if you go on there. If you scroll a little bit down on that same website, you see a beautiful picture of Lindsay and her mom. Lindsay is here too, right? I see her in the back. There's a beautiful picture. Thank you for letting us use your picture. And there's a blue button called Learn Now. If you click on that, and this is too small, I know, for even me to see, but there are about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 icons that suggest different ways to donate. So one is simply by credit card, as you just saw. We also accept PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay. Then there is a way, basically, if you don't want to deal with that, to donate by phone. I have my cell phone number on there, and I'll call you back in the evenings or whenever I can. You can make a memorial donation. You can even donate stock. And that is interesting for some donors who would have a specific tax event when they sell their stock. We accept stock. You can donate through your donor advised fund. I talked about that a little bit. Not many people have those, but if you know folks who have those, that is definitely a great way to go. And then for older people that would like older, I'm saying that I'm getting close to that, but anyway, that have an IRA, for example, they can donate up to $100,000 tax-free from their account every year. So that's another interesting opportunity for them to become philanthropic. Then there is this whole donation match by corporations, and I can find out if your corporation actually matches your donation or your family's donation. So I have a way to do that if you tell me what the company is. And then another way that a lot of people like to fundraise is through Facebook. And it's also very easy. When you go on Facebook, if you are on Facebook, on the left, there's a column with different options. And a middle way down, there is one that says fundraisers. You click on fundraisers. Then you have to say, who do you want to fundraise for? You type in LHON Collective, and it makes, and I know this is hard to see, but it basically just makes a fundraising page for you. There's nothing more to do. There's nothing we even have to do. It just makes one automatically for you, and it's connected to LHON Collective. So some people are active on social media and like to do that. We are right now able to do very easily fundraisers on Facebook. Another way to do fundraising online is, of course, if you have a certain event, whether it's a birthday or anniversary, anything around a theme that you can fundraise for, I'd like to fundraise for, all you do is let Melinda or I know, and we can enter it on the back end on this Fundraise Up software. And basically what you'll do is you set a personal fundraising goal. Let's say I want to raise, $500 or $100 for my birthday. We'll ideally have a picture of you or your family, because this will go to your friends and family, and a picture always helps. And then a message from you. So I just basically made one up here. I know this is also hard to see, but basically you can use any of your personal pictures and any message to encourage folks, family and friends to fundraise specifically towards a goal. whatever you set, $100, 500, 1,000 for my 50th anniversary. And then you would send this link out with an email, and it will all happen on the back end. We will provide the thank yous and the tax receipts and so forth. So that's another popular way to fundraise, is around an anniversary, around a birthday, or another event, retirement, whatever you have. So those are really just a few notes that I wanted to make. Again, I'm here to help with anything related to fundraising, and happy to answer any questions. But I know we have a popcorn session too.
Thank you, Lily. Actually, we did start late, so we are going to go over by 5 minutes because we started 10 minutes late, so we can only give you back 5. And in so doing, we're also, a popcorn session is where we would ask people in the audience who we've talked to about events that they've done that are successful. And in the interest of time, Jen and I have made an audible, and we're going to share who those people are and what they've done so that you can find them at lunch or otherwise, or we can connect you and you can learn more if one of those events and that type of fundraising sounds like something you'd like to pursue. So I'll share with you that in my home, I created a high tea and I had friends of mine come over to the house. And during, I served all the sessions, the little sandwiches and the scones and the dessert. And during that high tea, at the different breaks between the various little meals, I shared about LH1 Collective, and I shared about what we want to do to support our community, what the science is that we want to move forward. And then I shared how to donate over the website. And when it was over, my different friends donated at different levels that were at their comfort level. So that's one idea. Jen, would you like to share one?
I had learned at the 2015 conference that Jessica Loomer and her friends did a dinner in the dark. So we did a dinner in the dark because my son was 15 when he was diagnosed, and our community came out. We had a silent auction, a live auction, and served dinner with blindfolds on, and we had raised $40,000 that night. 34 of it went to the LHON Project Fund. So if you want to
Pretty
talk about
spectacular.
dinners, talk to Jessica or myself.
Moving on, Lissa Poinsano in past years has run a bike ride that was successful with Jeremy. And so that's an example of a sports fundraiser. And if you would like to consider a golf fundraiser or similarly a bike fundraiser or another sports type of fundraiser, there are similarities among sports fundraisers, and you can talk to Lissa a little bit further about the challenges with that, the work involved in that, as well as the success metrics. Would you like to share the next one?
Chad Lewis has some ideas about T-shirts that he has made and a book. So he would be more than happy to talk to you at lunch.
And John Coughlin is one of many people who's done a birthday fundraiser on Facebook. And he can share with you how that worked, how he ended up choosing LHON Collective. As you do the drop down for LHON, there are other LHON organizations. So you do want to ensure you choose LH1 Collective. So we want them all to do well, but this is a fundraiser for us specifically. So how that worked and then what the hurdles were or how easy it was. Please talk to John if you're interested in the Facebook fundraiser ideas.
Other opportunities, you can do a calendar sale where you sell the days of the month and they pay whatever day they choose. We do have somebody in our LH1 community named Shauna Anderson, and she sells Pampered Chef. So you could do a Pampered Chef fundraiser. You can do cash raffles, but make sure you look into your state for gambling license. Golf tournaments and pickleball tournaments are other ideas.
So we have one more each that were approached just this last 24 hours of people who want to be additive in the community. Joey Hernandez talked to me about the fact that she would like to pursue doing an evening fundraiser where she does improv. And it would be an improv in the dark. So it would be something where it would be all audible and approachable for a VI audience, and then an explanation of what LHON is. And it sounds really interesting. And if any of us live in California, I know I'm going to make the effort to come to that improv in September. So she's moving forward with that idea, gung ho.
And one last one, Andrea Kiefer is in here. She makes cards in memory of Melissa, and the donations go to the UMDF. So if you want to see Andrea, she's got cards.
And Jessica and Maria, I want to tell you, we nailed it at 35 after.
Thank you so much. That was, again, another very informative session. And if you aren't inspired to get involved somehow, some way, you're not alive. So great. Contact any of these folks, Uli, any of the folks they mentioned about getting involved or getting some more ideas going. I know Joey was just pumped yesterday, and she is going to be doing this fundraiser. Just ideas popping in your heads while you're sitting here. Please keep them in your heads. Talk to the appropriate people about getting those done.